This is Bean to Barstool, a podcast that looks at the intersections of craft chocolate, craft beer, and other artisan drinks. My name is David Nilsson. I'm a professional drinks writer, an advanced cicerone, the author of Pairing Beer and Chocolate, and the creator and host of this show. The music for this episode is by my dear friend, indie folk musician Anna P.S. You can find out more about Anna's music in the show notes or on annapsmusic.com. You can find links and information about our guests in the show notes as well. I hope you enjoy this episode of Bean to Barstool. A chocolate bar mold can tell a story as surely as the text on the wrapper can. Many makers opt for a pretty simple mold, and that's okay too. A cool mold is a luxury, not a necessity, especially in an era of social media that sadly no longer prioritizes great photography. But when I open a wrapper and am presented with a unique mold, I know the maker's care and creativity have extended to every detail of the experience, and I'm grateful for it. When I open the wrapper of this bar in front of me right now, decorated in soft watercolors with amethyst and faded rose pink, and peel back the gold inner wrapper, I'm presented with the fractal geometry of the chocolate bar itself, triangles leaning against each other in ridges and ravines. 2/3 of the way up the bar is a space of untouched calm, and pressed into that flat surface is a name, KESSHŌ. KESSHŌ Chocolate was opened in 2019 in Shanghai, China, by Liang Wang and Mark Hutch. They moved the business to Austin, Texas in 2022 and have quickly become darlings of the craft chocolate world. Their bars are inspired by Asian cuisine and ingredients and sometimes present flavor concepts that are unexpected in North American chocolate. Some bars, like Salted Plum, Guava Lime, and their range of tea bars, are familiar enough, even if the quality of their execution is rare. But Lamb Skewer, Hot Pot, Black Sesame, those open up worlds to the curious taster that might otherwise have remained closed. I met Liang in person for the first time at the Midwest Craft Chocolate Festival back in November and was pleased to sit down with her again recently to talk about how these concepts are created and how flavor can bridge cultural divides to speak to something deeper in our shared humanity, something more important now than ever. Here's Liang. Liang, I'm wondering if you can take a couple moments to share with us some of your personal story and how that led you to opening KESSHŌ.
Yeah, so I was born and raised in Beijing, and for most of my childhood, I spent with my grandma. She was born and raised in Yokohama, Japan. And interesting enough, she learned English in Japan and became an English teacher in China. She, in her teenager and like early career, she lived in 7 different Asian countries. And she loves sweets. So she gave me a big sweet tooth and many dentist visits. And she also gave me a lot of like Japanese and Pan-Asian like cuisine influences. So since when I was a kid, I was always fascinated by how many varieties out there in the different Asian countries. However, like given the special situation in China, I was never allowed to tell other people that I have a grandma that was born and raised in Japan. My family suffered a lot during Cultural Revolution, and they have been very cautious about the international background in my family. So from a little kid, I found my connection with Japan like a little secret. But I studied Japanese in middle school, and later on, I went to like around 2018, I went to Japan to study pastry and bakery. I always feel like I have a passion for different cultures, like different food. And and I also love learning languages. So I studied Japanese, I studied English, I studied some French. I'm studying Spanish now in Austin. I always feel like cross-cultural, like cultural understanding and cultural tolerance plays a crucial role in people's life, and language and food are the two vehicles that can help people understand each other better. And and I know like with ChatGPT, maybe people do not have the eager to learn a different language so much, but people are curious about one another's food. And I love sweets, and I think like making sweets, making Western dessert using Asian ingredients is a very fun angle for me to tell the story of myself and also for of other people from the various Asian regions. Oh, I also studied yoga in India for 3 months. And actually that was where I first got to know Bintu Bar chocolate in southern India in Mysore. It's a small town near like 4 hours away from Bangalore. I ran into a Bintu Bar chocolate that's made with like local Indian cacao. I didn't know much about Bintu Bar chocolate before that. And I tasted that chocolate. It tastes like passion fruit, mango, like sour pop. And I look at the ingredients, and there's only two ingredients, just the cacao beans and I was like, wow, this doesn't taste like chocolate. So I emailed the owner of the chocolate brand, and they welcomed me to visit their little chocolate factory, and showed me the entire line of how to make from like bean to bar. It's a very small chocolate factory, about the same size as what we have now in Austin. And I was like, yeah, I really want to sell your chocolate in China, let people know what true cacao fruit tastes like. And they're like, yeah, it's impossible for you to ship chocolate outside India. So they encouraged me to start making chocolate. They gave me all the contact for the like equipments, like melangers, and I think just different dots connected in my life and finally leading to making an Asian-inspired bean to bar chocolate.
And what does the name KESSHŌ mean?
Kesho is a Japanese word meaning crystal. It has two layers of meanings. First of all, like chocolate is a crystallized structure. The tempering chocolate is the fun part, especially when you do it manually. And also in Japanese culture, kesho means fruit from hard labor because making a piece of chocolate all the way from sourcing cacao beans and also for us like sourcing Asian, high quality Asian ingredients all the way from like China or Japan or other parts of Asia and then imported to the States is never easy. So I personally I really like the word cashew. And also I learned something after we started to sell it here. In Swahili, cashew means tomorrow. So we use a lot of Tanzanian cacao beans from Cocoa Cameli. So I really like this layer of meaning because we started our chocolate making from the amazing Tanzanian beans. So it kind
That's
of
really neat.
opens up a future tomorrow for us.
Yeah. Well, and your bar design, your mold kind of has a crystal, like fractal like
Yeah.
design to it that
Uh-huh.
echoes that. That's
Yes.
neat. Well, let's talk about some of your bars because you have some very unexpected flavor concepts behind some of your bars that I think probably a lot of North American chocolate fans are surprised to see. I'm thinking of your lamb skewer bar, especially. Let's talk about how you develop your flavor ideas when you're going to create a new bar.
Sure.
What goes into that process for you?
Yeah, so like every single chocolate maker, we started making chocolate from two ingredients, chocolate, just the beans and the sugar. And for me, like cacao is always the centerpiece of a chocolate. So we will try to understand the cacao's flavor profile by roasting it longer, like roasting it shorter, like at higher temperature, lower temperature. So like the cacao's flavor profile builds up the foundation of our chocolate bars. And then upon the different flavor profile, we will try to brainstorm what kind of like Asian flavors this cacao bean reminded us. For example, we had our very first inclusion bar is the Japanese yuzu, 56% dark milk chocolate using cacao beans from Cocoa Cameli. The reason why we made that bar was because of the Cocoa Cameli beans' beautiful citrusy and floral notes. We actually try to use our chocolate in our baked goods back in our bakery in China, and we realized the citrusy notes, it's just like it's jumping out so vividly that it can hardly go with any other like
Mm.
cream or like make it a ganache. We can only make it into a like a chocolate or orange chocolate cake. And when I was studying in Japan, I always loved using yuzu in my cooking, and I know a farm in Miyazaki Prefecture. It's a co-op. They make some beautiful like yuzu product. I used their yuzu salt. I used their yuzu like in even in like bath salt. And I contacted them, and they have a yuzu grind powder that I really really liked. So we and I when I smell that powder, it just sings beautifully with the Tanzanian cacao beans. So we decided to make a yuzu flavored Tanzanian bintu bar chocolate. And for other flavors, like for Uganda, we also use like Semoliki Forest Uganda beans. That bean can have like different characteristics when you roast it at lower temperature, shorter time, or at higher temperature, like make it a darker roast. So that bean is more versatile to me. So when you only light roasted it, it has a beautiful like berry note. So we make it into like raspberry, salted plum, which is like inspired from the Japanese umeboshi. And when we roast it darker, it has like a chocolate fudge kind of taste, which can go better with different spices. That's where like our mulled wine, like lamb skewer and hot pot chocolate are all based upon that one. Yeah.
Okay. Do you have any of these bars that you feel like have been the most challenging to make them work, to make those flavors actually work in a bar?
We'll be right back.
Hey everyone, Fifth Street Brew Pub in Dayton, Ohio is one of our sponsors at Bean to Barstool and Final Gravity, our print beer zine, and they just happen to be one of my favorite hometown breweries. They're one of the only cooperatively owned breweries in the country, a testament to their community focus and support. Inside a building from the 1850s in the historic neighborhood of St. Anne's Hill, Fifth Street Brew Pub offers a warm, cozy atmosphere and excellent beer and food. And you can take your favorite beers to go with their Gem City swing tops, elegant swing top bottles filled straight from the taps with regular favorites like St. Anne's Pills and Rough Gem Farmhouse Ale, or whatever their current seasonals are. I recently had a Sage Pilsner from them that was fantastic. Sage is one of those flavors that can get away from you really quickly, but they used it in a really graceful way in this beer. Loved it. If you're in the Dayton area, head over to Fifth Street to hang out or grab beer to go, and if you're visiting Dayton, and you should, make sure Fifth Street is on your list. Cheers.
Yeah, actually, I wanted to say every bar is challenging. Yeah, I think for this year, the most challenging one was actually the guava lime and hot pot for us. The guava lime bar is inspired from our trip in Vietnam. We tasted like we dipped guava in chili lime salt in Vietnamese night market, and that was just so tasty. Like the pink guava, like the fruit notes exploded in my mouth, and the chili lime salt. It's softer. It's not like the Mexican Tajín. Like Tajín is very straightforward, but chili lime salt in Vietnam is just like it's very gentle. So I always want to transform that flavor memory into a bar. And of course, I think Simoliki's flavor profile really matches, like has the potential, but took us a long time to decide how much chili to put in that bar. Because if you make it too spicy, you will need to write like chili lime salt, chili lime guava on the packaging, then I think it will frighten some people away.
Sure.
But if you don't put enough, if it's just like a plain guava lime bar, it's kind of boring. So it actually took us maybe 10 rounds of tasting to finalize on like how much, what chili to choose, how much to put, when to put in the melanging process because I realized if you put in different too early or too late, the flavor is kind of different. Because I learned that lesson when making the lamb skewer bar. So yeah, so in the end we decided to put just a little amount of chili that people can taste, but even people who do not like spicy food will enjoy the warming chili. So we will not call it spicy, but it's warm. And for our hot pot chocolate, we actually didn't plan to make it a hot pot chocolate bar. We wanted to make lao gan ma. It's a popular Chinese like chili paste, and the core ingredients in that chili paste is fermented beans. So lao gan ma is something like I would eat with every single meal when I was in college because I want to save money. So like just buy rice and then put some like the lao gan ma sauce on top. And Mark also loved that flavor. But we found it's very difficult to just like let people understand what lao gan ma is. So we let our team taste the bar. We let some of our customers at our food trucks taste the experimental bar, and we asked them, "What do you think about after you eat that bar?" A lot of people are like, "Wow, this is amazing. This is very interesting." And some of them mentioned to me hot pot idea. And I was like, yeah, why don't I just turn it into a hot pot bar? Because the essence of Sichuan hot pot is not being too spicy, but being very flavorful, like have the umami flavor, have the numbing pepper, have some of the like the sesame oil. It's just like a collection of amazing fun flavors together. So I twisted the recipe quite a bit, and we decided to call it the Sichuan Hot Pot Chocolate Bar. I mean, a lot of our product creation journey is actually having a lot of customers and friends of our brand involved to build those flavors together.
That's fun to see that collaborative process. I
Yes.
wanted to ask about that consumer education component because I
Uh-huh.
imagine some people encounter a bar that has savory flavors and are surprised that that's in a chocolate bar where they're expecting
Yes.
sweets.
Mhm.
How has that education component worked for you? Like, do you have to take time to explain that to people?
Yeah, definitely a lot of time. I was talking to a friend the other day. I was like, I don't really have any social life in the States. I just spend all my time in the kitchen, and maybe my only social life is go out to do demo and sell chocolate and talking to people about all the weird bars that I made. And I think letting people taste those flavors is definitely important. Like, for example, our black sesame chocolate bar at the beginning when we first launched in the first year, it was not selling so well, like because a lot of people find it odd to see black sesame in the chocolate. And also it's a white chocolate. And people have the perception that white chocolates are very sweet. But our black sesame white chocolate is not so sweet and have a like a savory note, and tastes like nutty. So after 1 year, actually now our black sesame chocolate bar has become the number like top two sellers. I think it's just like after people like get to taste it at various event, and also through word of mouth. Yeah, just more and more people started to like that. And the lamb skewer bar is the same. Like we didn't expect people to buy that bar at the beginning. We just thought it's fun to have a lamb skewer bar out there because we first wanted to make a goat milk chocolate for people who are cow milk intolerant. And then we just found it's so boring. There are so many good goat milk chocolate out on the market. Why would people buy our goat milk chocolate bar? So it was like Mark's idea. Like Mark loves lamb skewer. When he was studying in Beijing, he got every time he eats the street lamb skewer, he would get really sick, but he would still go back to eat it. So I think that flavor just like carved and he's like kind of addicted to that cumin lamb combination. So it's really his brainchild. And also my dad is from the Uyghur region of China. So I'm very, very familiar with that flavor profile. But interestingly, we do have a loyal lamb skewer fan base. And those people really purchase a lot of our lamb skewer bar and send to friends. So I would say some of our savory bars have their own like fan group, and these like fan leaders are helping us doing the education by buying these bars and send to friends. And I was like, hey, I'll let you try this chocolate. You will never imagine how it tastes like.
Yeah. Well, the first bar of yours that I had was the lamb skewer, and Estelle Tracy sent it to me. And we actually ended up talking about that bar on an episode earlier this year. We were talking
Yeah.
about difficult bars to pair with, bars that have unusual flavors and how you pair those with wine
Yes.
or beer. And
Uh-huh.
so we spent some time on the lamb skewer bar, and it was a lot of fun. You have three different bars made with some kind of tea. You have the hojicha, the matcha, and the Jamaica bar. Tell me a little bit about differentiating those and how those tell different stories.
Sure. We actually have one more tea bar, which is the boba tea.
Oh, right, right. Yes.
Yeah, so our very first tea chocolate bar is actually the boba tea bar. It's milk, 44% milk chocolate, using Cayapas River Ecuadorian cacao. So it's actually also an interesting accident, because when I tasted the samples of the Cayapas River cacaos, it had a it doesn't have a really strong astringency. Although I know like for national cacao, it often has some level of astringency with the bean, which is not a defect but a flavor profile. But when we actually received a big batch of the Ecuadorian cacao, we realized that astringency is much stronger than the sample. No matter how long we roast it or like we extend the melanging time, that astringency will not go away. And I've paid for everything and I need to use those beans. So I thought, well, what other ingredient that has astringency and tastes natural, and that's tea. And so I used a very good like black tea from southern China, because tea is somehow like cacao. Like if the astringency is not so strong, like people really enjoy it, and that's
Mhm.
can tend to be like more expensive. So a very low astringency tea, black tea, actually really balanced out the cacao. So we first just call it a milk tea chocolate. And we also like it's a collaborative creation process. We sent it to one of our, who is also a retailer of us right now, Cody. We sent it to him and he tasted that bar. He was like, you should call it boba tea. It really reminds me of boba, because we used a lot of dark molasses sugar rather than cane sugar in that bar.
Mhm.
It's actually very challenging because dark molasses sugar's moisture level is pretty high.
Okay.
So tempering that bar is never easy. So we decided to take Cody's advice and name it boba tea. And so boba tea for the past 2 years, boba tea have been our top two sellers as well, because I think that tea and cacao, like the cacao's flavor profile just like enhanced the tea notes, and also like the dark molasses flavor notes just, and the earthiness of the cacao also resonates really well. So that's our first tea bar. And then we decided to make a hojicha bar because personally I really like drinking hojicha. Like I have to admit I'm not a big matcha fan because I like my personality is somehow against like pop culture, like whatever that's really popular. I tend not to like it so much. So I always like drinking hojicha. And even if when I go out to demo, I told people this is hojicha, and there's people like, oh, let me try it. And then it's like, this is not horchata. It's hojicha, not horchata. So hojicha is roasted Japanese green tea. It has a very beautiful like dark notes, almost like coffee. So for our white chocolate bar, we use deodorized cacao butter, and we make our own white chocolate base because when we make a tea bar, we want to emphasize the Japanese tea notes, because the better the Japanese tea is, usually the flavor note is more like subtle. So we choose to go through the deodorized cacao butter route. And so after hojicha, which got us many, made probably the most international awards, we decided to make a matcha bar because there were just too many people who asked for matcha. But that was easy because we sourced the hojicha from Uji, and I know those people so well, so they can easily make they know what kind of matcha I'm looking for because they have like 40 different kinds of matcha. So we tested out from maybe 5 different types, and then we finalized on one matcha that we are still using now. And then after matcha, we decided to do a genmai cha, which is Mark's favorite. I know like genmai cha is not so well known in the States, but also I really like the genmai cha's warming note. It has like the green tea and toasted rice. And interestingly, like people who have never heard of genmai cha before and taste that chocolate bar, they would recognize it as pistachio and popcorn.
Hmm.
So I think good flavors are universal. Like people may have different brain associations, but it touched the soft spot in their brain and they decided that, oh, I really like this bar. Then they will be like, so what is genmai cha? Yeah. So again, I think tea and cacao are associated like so well with one another. We are still in the process of making more tea chocolate bars. So hopefully in the next year we'll have more interesting tea flavored dark or milk chocolate. Yeah.
It's exciting. We'll look forward to that. You mentioned earlier that flavor and food does kind of play that role of bridging across cultures and connecting people. Is that something you're conscious of when you are developing new bars, of playing that role, or how does that work for you?
That really traced back to when Mark and I first started our bakery in China. That was in year 2009. We started a bakery called Pie House, selling American pies in Beijing, which is odd because nobody like Chinese people do not really know what a pie is, and we are strictly selling to American expats. I remember for a while we only have had English websites, and that's really weird. And then and gradually like we realized I started to that also requires a lot of customer education, especially for Chinese people, like starting from my immediate family. Like they will ask me, what is this pancake? They in Chinese they call it a pancake, like has some weird sweet fillings. And even when I was like applying for health permit, like for the facility, they asked me, what do you produce? I need to tell them it's a big egg tart filled with fruit. So it's actually from the early days, I enjoy this conversation of like telling people about like American baked goods, like why people eat that, when will people eat that. There are even some people who really like our baked goods would buy apple pie on July the 4th, which is not a holiday in China at all. So I actually find that process very interesting. And gradually, when there are less and less American expats in China, we need to survive. So we want to make our American baked goods more friendly to Asian palates. So back then we actually have 3 different sweetness level for our apple pie, just to cater to different people. And we would offer to add cheddar cheese for Canadian customers. Yeah, which is very interesting. Like all these customers' suggestions or demand help me understand the world a little better. Like there are always things or dietary preferences that I don't know. So we started to make like red velvet cake infused with like Chinese berries, or a cupcake with like black sesame and matcha. So it's really this process of using Asian ingredients in like traditional American types of baked goods or cakes makes me feel like this is so interesting. And I found that I just genuinely like doing this. So when we transitioned to making chocolate, This is just a natural habit of making fun Asian ingredients into a form of chocolate bar. And like for connecting the cultural part is really more from coming from when we land after I landed in Austin, which I have never visited before I decided to move here. And like talking to people, like I feel like this chocolate bar becomes a conversation, can start a conversation like, oh, the salted plum bar, like what is salted plum? Why do you make that salted plum flavor? What is salted plum? And like I would tell them the story of my first encounter with umeboshi in Japan, which I mistaken it as a snack and I ate too much of it. And people will tell me about their salted plum flavor, or they use the umeboshi paste in some like vegan cooking. So it's just like make the distance closer between me and the city and the local community. So I think that's a natural passion for me, making those flavors.
I love that. Do you have one of these bars that you feel like is the most personal for you, whether it's the story it tells or the flavors it brings back to you or anything like that?
Yeah, that would be the black sesame bar. At KESSHŌ, we made a black sesame chocolate, and then we use the chocolate to make a cookie. We use the chocolate to make a buttercup. We use a buttercup to make a gelato. So it's like a whole black sesame series. The reason why black sesame means so much to me was because of my dad. He always eats a spoonful of black sesame powder in the morning, and he asked me to do the same or use like black sesame paste on my toast because he believes the black sesame can make my hair look darker, which is a good thing in Chinese culture. And when I was a kid, I believed it. But although when people saw my dad's pictures, like his hair is all white. But yeah. So black sesame just reminds me of my dad. And my dad is the person who really encouraged me to start my this new venture in the States, opening up a new chapter in my life. And I always hoped my dad could visit me after everything's set up, but he was diagnosed with cancer soon after we set up the kitchen in Austin in 2023. And that was a very, very difficult year for me. So actually, I was going back to China every month. So every other month, I'm in China and then in the States. And he passed away very quickly after he was diagnosed. And he was right in the process of getting a US visa. So he could never visit our food trucks or never tasted any of the chocolate we made here because back in China we only made some like single origin like dark chocolate or dark milk chocolate, and yuzu is the only inclusion bar we made. So he has never tried our black sesame chocolate. So yeah, my mom was always like, if your dad tasted that chocolate bar, he would eat it every single meal. Yeah, so I always tell other chocolate makers, I think it's really important to make an inclusion bar that you're really familiar with the inclusions you put in, and you really need to love it. Like I love black sesame so much. I can use it in so many different ways, and that's how we created a lot of black sesame treats that many people also love.
That's really neat. Well, your label artwork is very colorful and very eye-catching. Can
Thank
you
you.
tell us a little bit about how that artwork is developed and how those help tell the story of those bars?
For me, the chocolate bar, the entire from the inner layer to the outer layer to the bar itself, it should be consistent. It should be telling the same brand concept and the same flavor note. As soon as people see that bar, they will start to have some associations of looking at the name and looking at the artwork. They need to imagine, oh, how the chocolate tastes like. And when they actually taste the chocolate, it meets or goes beyond their expectation, and that's the effect that I would love to see. So we decided to use a Chinese watercolor style, which actually is a Chinese like Asian and Western style combined. And at the very beginning, when we first launched our bars in China, it's just watercolor. It's not Chinese watercolor. And I always want to find real artists to do the artwork. Of course, back in 2019, there wasn't like ChatGPT was not that popular yet, and we need to rely on like real artists. So I found an artist on Instagram who is not so famous, but I like her drawing. It just makes me feel like a lot of like free will in her drawing is not so rigid and gives me a lot of like imagination space. So we work with her for our single origin dark chocolate and also like dark milk and Himalayan pink salt. And after that, as we transitioned to making like Asian inspired bean to bar chocolate, we started to work with more like Asia based female artists because I think our chocolate's flavor is bold yet still very gentle. So I want the artwork has a more like feminine view. So we only work with female artists like in Malaysia, in Taiwan, or in Shanghai. Yeah, we will brief them, like we will describe how the flavor tastes like, what ingredients we used, and let them submit their artwork. So I really enjoyed the process because everything is made by real people and they're not so well known, but there is always a story behind.
We'll be right back.
Hey everyone, you may have noticed things in the world aren't awesome right now, and social media kind of reflects that. I built a lot of the following for Bean to Barstool and just for my own writing career on Instagram, but I've been getting significantly lower returns in terms of engagement on Instagram, and well, some of their recent changes don't have me thrilled for the future. So, here are some ways to keep up with Bean to Barstool if Instagram and other social media platforms don't prove to be long-term viable solutions. If you do nothing else, sign up for the Bean to Barstool newsletter. You can do that by going to beantobarstool.com/newsletter-signup. That link is in the show notes. That is a weekly email newsletter that covers all the same things we cover here on the podcast. Speaking of, subscribe to the podcast on your favorite podcast platform. Wherever you listen to Bean to Barstool, go there and subscribe to make sure you get notifications of new episodes. If you're a proud millennial like me and you still use an RSS feeder, you can also subscribe to our blog posts, which come out at least weekly. Also, if you are still on social media but don't love Meta right now, you can check me out over on Blue Sky. I'm on there under my personal account at David Nilsson Beer, but I do post all the Bean to Barstool content over there as well. Finally, if you want to get in touch with me directly, you can email beantobarstool@gmail.com. I am not leaving Instagram anytime soon, but these are great ways to make sure you can keep up with what I have going on. Stay safe and take care of each other.
Yeah.
I think that's great. We've got to support actual artists and writers for sure. So I love hearing that. Here on Bean to Barstool, of course, we often look at alcoholic beverages, and you have the mulled wine bar. I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about creating that and your process for how you actually get flavor into that.
Sure. So for the mulled wine bar, we soaked the cacao nibs. This similar for Uganda cacao. We soaked the nibs in marsala wine, Cointreau, and rum, and we dried it out. And we melanged the nibs with cinnamon powder, and we added more nibs into the chocolate bar during the molding process. So the inspiration of that bar was when we were still running the chocolate store in Shanghai. We have seeds, and we sell some mulled wine in winter. And there is a customer was like, we do like wine and chocolate pairing tasting events, and a customer was like, yeah, you should make a mulled wine flavored chocolate. And that just gave me this idea. And I know, like, so wine is a low alcohol content, and the flavor is less concentrated. So I need to use liquor to give people this mulled wine feeling. So yeah, just like when we make other bars, a lot of the time, like lamb skewer, we are not using lamb. We're using goat milk and cumin. Like boba tea, we don't put tapioca pearls in it. We use black seed, molasses, sugar, and milk powder. So for the mulled wine, I just because I use those liquor a lot in making pastries, so I'm very familiar with those flavors. So I just I designed the ratio of the two liquors, and we soak the nibs, and it's surprisingly tasty. Yeah, but we only make it during holiday season because it's pretty painful to to mold it.
Sure. Well, you mentioned pairing with wine. I was wondering if you could share a little bit about any pairing advice you have for any of your bars.
Sure. I mean, wine and chocolate are, in my opinion, very difficult to pair, given yeah, sometimes it's like the acidity and the bitterness will clash with each other. But I really like our salted plum to pair with some light body Pinot Noir, and I think our yuzu can go well with some Pinot Gris or some orange wine. Yeah, I would say like raspberry is also can match well with Pinot Noir because we light roast our cacao beans for those fruity bars, so the bitterness is not so strong. So even when you drink with wine, it's not like some other really dark roasted dark chocolate. The bitterness of chocolate will just jump out.
Are there any other beverages besides wine that you also pair with chocolate?
I mean, whiskey is a common one, like also like brandy. We did some of that pairing, and also like port. I mean, port is easy because it's just, yeah, I think it's designed to eat with chocolate before sleep. Yeah, I have not really tried a lot of like beer with chocolate, but I listened to some of your episode and I saw Estelle's work and I think, yeah, it's so interesting. I'm so tempted in trying, but I've gone sober, so I no longer do that many like pairing for like alcohol with chocolate, but I think it's always interesting to try. I like using alcohols in dessert making and like chocolate bonbons making. Yeah, but here we don't make bonbons. Back in China, I used to make bonbons and like nama chocolate. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Well, you're working with chocolate every single day. You're making chocolate. Do you get much opportunity to just taste and enjoy it? And if so, what is that process like for you at this point?
I still enjoy chocolate every single day. And I think tasting chocolate has become a habit. I don't think I could eat a chocolate bar anymore. So every chocolate bar, whoever hands me a random chocolate bar, I'll just open it, like smell it, like hear the snaps, and have a little bite, let it melt, like feel the chocolate. It's just like a muscle memory for me now.
Mm.
And even for a commercial, like someone gave me a bar, like a $1 chocolate bar, I would still do the same. And I think eating food in general, like take the time and really taste it, taste the good part and the bad part about it. It's just yeah, it's just a great way to feel the existence of yourself and feel, yeah, feel the time, like calm myself down.
Mm.
So yeah.
Yeah, I like that. Well, you mentioned enjoying learning different languages. You've got experience with several different languages. Do you find that having access to those different languages gives you more descriptive ability when you're trying to describe flavors or aromas in chocolate? Like, do you find that, oh, this word in this language does this better than this one? Like, how does that work for you?
Actually, I don't think my language skill is that great. My feeling is like every single Spanish word I'm learning now is like deleting half a word of Japanese in the back of my brain. But I do think since I know these language, I love reading a lot of their like cooking books. I learn language by buying. I have many different languages like cooking books. I can tell like, oh, this ingredients or that ingredients, like that's something they don't use in other parts of the world. So I also love traveling. So I think just having different like flavor combination can give me inspirations designing different chocolate or different gelatos. And that also helps me understand like how balance of flavors work in different cuisine and how the train of thought, which is reflects in their language, will eventually go into how people cook food.
We've talked throughout the episode about the different stories that different bars are telling. What is the central story that KESSHŌ Chocolate is telling?
We are trying to connect the East and West using chocolate bar and our other like sweets that we make. And we also want to empower the cacao farmers in African and Central America, because that's where we source our cacao from. There are so many inclusion chocolate bars on the market, and using bean to bar approach to make inclusion bars is a tough choice because the beans are always volatile. Like every harvest will be different. It's just adding a lot of work to ourselves. But with that, like supporting cacao farmers as part of the mission will force ourselves to continue doing it that way rather than only making an inclusion bar.
If some of the types of tea Liang mentioned earlier in the episode sound familiar from this podcast, it's likely from the episode I recorded with Estelle Tracy about pairing chocolate with tea, in which she had me make and try genmaicha, hojicha, matcha, and others. I'll link to that in the show notes. Also, if you want to hear Estelle and I talk about pairing beer and wine with the lamb skewer bar, I'll link to that episode as well. Estelle's a common guest around here. I was interested to hear Liang talk about using alternative ingredients to help evoke a particular flavor concept, such as goat milk in place of lamb, or using rum to help sell the alcohol perception in the mulled wine bar. That's a concept I see more often in brewing, but it's cool to see it working here as well. If you can think of other examples of this, I'd like to hear about them. Also, big kudos to Liang and KESSHŌ for paying real human artists, because only artists can create art, and we need them. Some quick news items before we part. Indulgence Chocolatiers in Milwaukee have announced their upcoming slate of pairing classes, pairing their chocolate with different alcoholic beverages. They're doing classes focused on cocktails, cognac, a few different things. They do a ton of this kind of thing, and I think it's really cool. So you can check out their website or their social media to find out more about those and maybe attend if you're in the area. Also, I really enjoyed an Instagram post from my friend Lauren, who you know on Instagram as Bluebells and Neighbors, and I just want to read this caption. It's for J Street Chocolate's Nocino Nib Bar, so I'm just going to read what Lauren wrote about it. Nocino Nib Bar was one of my favorite bars tasted in 2025 and is now one of my all-time favorite inclusion bars. Julia starts making her own nocino, a walnut liqueur with Italian roots, during the summer for the winter release of this fantastic bar. Her homemade nocino features local California green walnuts, warm spices, and vanilla. She soaks the nibs from Camino Verde in Ecuador in the liqueur before processing into chocolate and adds infused nibs to the back of the finished bar. I find alcohol-infused bars to vary greatly in terms of how much flavor is imparted after most of the alcohol evaporates in the chocolate-making process. A liqueur made from spices and fruit has the advantage of bringing a lot to the infusion party beyond the heat of alcohol. This bar is the perfect after-dinner dessert. Like Coca-Cola and Angostura bitters, met in a speakeasy to share their secret ingredients with each other in order to bring you something both familiar and mysterious. I love that from Lauren. Nocino is actually weirdly popular here in the Midwest. I don't know if popular is the right word. It is not all that common, but it does have a long tradition here in the Midwest. We have black walnut trees all over the place. The smell of the fruit is pungent, and there's a long tradition of making a form of nocino here in the Midwest, and that smell is so evocative to me. I remember highlighting it, I think, all the way back in the very first episode of Bean to Barstool. So when I saw this bar, when I was scrolling through my feed, it definitely made me stop, and I really appreciated Lauren's thoughts there. In the next episode of Bean to Barstool, which will be at the beginning of February, we're going to be talking with London Co. of Peace on Fifth. We're going to talk about the Global Black Chocolate Maker Month, which she started 10 years ago. It's in its 10th year in 2026. We'll talk about what it is, the spirit behind it, why it's important right now, and then we're going to highlight some of the international black chocolate makers that she's going to be spotlighting at Peace on Fifth throughout the month. So definitely check back for that. Later in February, we'll be talking with the brewers from Wandering Monsters Brewing about their award-winning chocolate beers. Thanks to Liang for coming on the show today. Thanks to all of you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Bean to Barstool.